Hey, managers of the Super Conference. This is your commissioner, Tyler Burkhart, with the Week 5 recap. Now, definitely the theme for this week are underdogs and drama. We saw a lot of upsets, and we saw a lot of drama in some of the late games. Another thing that I think is really sweet at this point is 15 of the 16 teams have a record of 2-3 or better. You're not going to get that in many fantasy football leagues. And that's why I wanted to get everybody together, because I knew that you guys are some of the best fantasy football managers around, at least of who I know. So it's been a great week, or great season so far, and we'll see what other weeks have in store. Well, let's get to the awards. The best manager of the week goes to Aaron Middlestad of the San Diego Whales. Now, Aaron gets this award because he had Felix Jones and Miles Austin during his bye weeks, his star players. He still scored 87.5 fantasy points. One of the reasons he did that was because he picked up Kevin Walter, gave up 40 FAAB dollars, but I think it was worth the price to help him get a win. And now because of it, he's tied for the division lead at 3-2 against Kyle Armstrong. Huge win for San Diego. So for that reason, a must win, really helped him catapult his stock in our league and to win Manager of the Week. Worst Manager of the Week, I'm going to give to Tyler Powell of New York Blackout. Now, there's actually a few managers I thought about putting in this position, such as Evan Armstrong of Cleveland. But Tyler Powell's going to get it because, A, he scored 62 fantasy points this week, and really nobody had a bye other than Brandon Marshall, who isn't much of anything anymore because of a backup quarterback in Miami. Now it was a bad running back situation because Adai got hurt, and he failed to pick up his handcuff, knowing that Adai was injury prone. And he's only made 2 moves this whole year, which I think is the lowest in our league. Transaction and your record, there's a correlation there, in my opinion. I added up the record of teams that have 4 or less moves in our fantasy football league. And their records are combined 9-16. Only one of those teams is a winner, Minnesota Bryans. So Tyler Powell with only 2 transactions, it's not going to really help make his team any better than it really was. So all these teams are getting better and better because of their transactions, and Tyler has just stayed at this one level. So Tyler needs to make a move this week. He's got the pieces to do it, but he has to make a move this week that improves his team. And Tyler, it's running back depth. Improve it. The MVP for this week has to go to Adrian Peterson and the Minnesota Bryans. He's put up the most fantasy points for Week 5 and helped Minnesota Bryans get a huge victory over San Fran. No more teams are undefeated in our league now. Minnesota Bryans is now back up to 3-2, looking great. No doubt about it, the best matchup in Week 5 was Washington Stimulus taking on Seattle Sasquatches. Kyle and I are big rivals. We trash talk a lot, make a lot of transactions, and we knew this was going to be a good one. But something I've never seen before is a 38-point deficit going into Monday Night Football and still pulling out the victory with only 2 players, Matt Forte and Javid Best. So there's actually a point I was trailing Kyle by 0.02 points during the last 2 minutes of that game. So really exciting matchup, lived up to our expectations, and we'll see what these teams can do entering Week 6. The best upset, in my opinion, even though a lot of teams predicted it, I'm going to go with the LA Seismic Quakes over Cleveland Shamans. Now, the reason why I say that is because, A, LA did it by 30 points. But B, look at where these teams were at the beginning of the season. Cleveland, we thought, was going to be a top 4 team. That's what a lot of people said in the pre-rankings, if you go back. And LA was in the bottom 4. Now, both teams are 2-3, and their stocks are actually almost the same. I think Cleveland has a few more star players. But if you look at their schedules, I mean, this week, LA Seismic Quakes takes on Fargo. So he could get to 3-3 while Cleveland has to take on Washington. So it's really interesting to see these 2 teams go in opposite directions. And, I mean, a big upset, big victory for LA Seismic Quakes. So that's why I think it's the best upset of the week. So let's get to the Super Conference rankings. We already established that 15 of the 16 teams have 2 and 3 or better records. So because of that, doing the rankings are pretty tough for me now. But you can see, I think the first 4 teams are pretty solid, pretty concrete. They're in a class of their own. San Fran, Washington, Minnesota, and Seattle. These 4 teams have pretty much, for the most part, been the top 4 or 5. So we're going to keep them there. But starting with Green Bay at 5 and working our way down to 15, it's a free-for-all. I have no idea who's going to take the 5th and 6th spots there. But it's really who's ever going to be able to put together, the best trade packages before the deadline, November, I think, 19th. And who can play the matchups the best. So it's going to be really interesting to see. Kiln Legend made the biggest move of the year, actually, 5 spots from 11 to 6. And the reason why I moved him this week is because now I'm going to buy it. I'm going to buy the Matthew Stafford and Calvin Johnson connection. And I thought, relying on those 2 players, but now Frank Gore's coming on for San Fran. And I see enough where right now he's got the star talent to get him there. Now, I still think running back depth is a huge, huge question mark for him. And I'm still going to predict it keeps him out of the playoffs. But at the current moment, I think he has the 6th best team. Also, another team that made a move up was Portland Car Ramrod. The reason why this is because I love his running back depth. I've always said it, if you want to win in this league, you need running backs. He's got Foster. Torrain might get some carries now. And Daniel Thomas. I mean, he's got enough running back talent there now where he can at least compete. So he moved up 3 spots to 11. The 2 teams that fell were New York Blackout, reasons I already mentioned, and New York Yankees. Now, the reason why I dropped the Yankees 5 spots is because his running backs are huge questions. Hightower might not get the amount of carries that he used to. Jacobs, injury prone. And all his other running backs only get 3 carries a game. Vincent Jackson, he looks like he's going to be hurt on and off the entire season. Even though he might play still a lot of games, I think that injury is going to really bug him. So Yankees, I think, has a lot of question marks now, and the reason why he dropped. So let's go to Week 6. Our game of the week, we're going to keep Seattle right there in the game of the week, this time taking on San Diego Whales. Winner takes all for first place. Will be exciting. Also curious, this is a big bye week for Seattle because he has Chris Johnson sitting. So San Diego Whales, I think, can take advantage of this game and enter first place. I think he can do it. I'm actually going to predict him to do it. So we'll see what happens. My upset alert, New York Blackout I mentioned. I kind of ripped on him this week. But he needs a win. I think he's going to get it. I still think he needs to make the move to do it. But I'm going to predict he does it. And he's going to take over Minnesota. He's got Jennings and Starks against St. Louis. I like that matchup. I actually like Jones-Drew against Pittsburgh. I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but they're going to rely on Jones-Drew to have 20-25 carries. Meanwhile, Schaub takes on Baltimore, Adrian Peterson, Chicago, and Santana Moss against Philadelphia. Even though Philadelphia has given up a lot of points, that's because of the run, not the pass necessarily. So I expect Blackout to pull up this upset and get the 3-3 again. Finally, the prediction winner for Weekend 5 was Washington and Kiln. So Lucas and myself will get 5 FAB dollars. We only got 5 out of 8 right. So that's how difficult this week was. The last thing, we'll have 4 new feature teams for Contender Pretender. So make sure to take a look at that. It's been interesting to read everybody's remarks. And I'm going to put a spot open for for rankings. So if anybody wants to do any rankings at all, feel free to do that. I'd be curious to see what you have to say. I'm your Commissioner, Tyler Burkhart. We'll see what Week 6 has in store. Game on.